I'm Joe Abadi. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Tonight, my guest has amassed a collection of the rarest motorcycles in the world. Not only does he have the bikes, he's got trophies, memorabilia, and parts to go along with it. His vision is to have a 1,000 square foot building known as the International Motocross Museum that will house this pedigree of amazing motorcycles, and we'll all be able to enjoy it. When will it open? Everybody wants to know. Stick around. My guest tonight is Terry Good. We'll be answering that question and a whole lot more coming up on Vintage Motocross Q&A. Terry Good, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me, Joe, and thank you for
my pleasure.
All your help for supporting our effort to get this museum off the ground.
Well, it's something I certainly believe in, and I'll continue to help, Terry. Right now, I got to thank the people that helped me. Motion Pro, Vinco, Preston Petty Products, Racer X, Full Circle Racing, Replica Motorcycle Parts, and of course, the International Motocross Museum. Yeah, Terry, it's something that I strongly believe in. A lot of people do. We all want to see the International Motocross Museum, of course, come to fruition. You and I did an interview a while ago where we talked about the first bike you bought and your career on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, of course, going way back when you were a framer for housing and lived in Southern California. Tonight, I really want to talk about the International Motocross Museum, how things are progressing, but of course, fill in some of the blanks along the way. How long have you been collecting parts, Terry, and bikes?
I've been collecting bikes and parts since my first one I bought was in 1978. And at that time, I thought, that was the needle in the haystack and that was the only one that got out. And,
right.
Then I moved to, I changed careers and moved to Chicago. I bought the OW12 in 78, and I bought my Mugen, which I consider a works bike.
Sure.
I bought the very first Mugen that was sold in the United States, and I bought it directly from Hirotashi Honda, which is kind of cool. But I kept both of those, and I moved to Chicago in 1984. And then in 1990, I started a mail order business on the line racing, just as a hobby, sort of. I was a full-time trader on the floor at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. But I did that sort of as a hobby, and I did it for a few years. I sponsored a couple guys and, had some fun, but it was really big. I didn't like the business. And so I sold all that stuff out. But during that time when I was in the business or whatever you want to call it, I had some contacts. I made some contacts and other people told me about bikes. And so I started buying them here and there. And the next thing you know, there's like 20, 25 of them. And I'm like, man.
Yeah, I mean, you've been collecting bikes according to the number you just gave me. You've been collecting bikes and memorabilia and parts for over 40 years now.
45 years.
Yeah, and presently, you want to open a museum. Everybody wants to see that happen. I certainly want to see that happen. In the meantime, with all the bikes you've collected and collections that you've purchased, and we'll get to that a little bit later, like the Roger DeCoster collection. In the meantime, where are all these bikes? Where do you keep them all?
Well, there's a lot of them here at my house. I have storage facilities, several of them, and they're just filled to the brim. Over the last 45 years, I have amassed stuff that you can't even believe it. I couldn't believe it that the stuff still existed and that I was able to acquire it. And not only that, but all the people, like Håkan Anderson, Joel Robert, Roger, Les Archer,
Sure.
Stan London. These were just, they're guys like Mickey Mantle is to baseball, and they, hey, we're behind you all the way. Here's this, here's that, and I purchased the stuff, and I paid a fair price for it all. But man, it's just so immense. You cannot believe it. And what I thought is that, motocross will turn 100 years old next year.
Yes.
The first race was held at Bagshot Heath, England. It's in southern England, back in 1924. And I learned all this stuff basically firsthand from Leslie Archer, whose grandfather was actually part of that first event. And he was also a chauffeur for the royal family, which is interesting.
Les Archer's father was?
Grandfather.
His grandfather. Okay.
Yes. This goes way back. And so they had their shop, the Archers of Aldershot. And Les Archer was a huge name in England and then the continent, Europe at the time, as a road racer and also a motocrosser. And him and I got to be really good friends. And he exposed me to this whole window. I used to say, Leslie, you're the only window alive to the past. And him and I used to Skype, similar to this. We would Skype 2 and 3 times a week, and he would tell me all these just amazing stories about these battles he had with the great August Mingles on the Factory FN and Rene Barton and Victor Laloux. It's just incredible. I honestly believe maybe that was the golden era of motocross. But we became very good friends. I went and visited him a few times in Spain. He lived in Spain, although he was from England. And he had all the memorabilia and all the trophies, everything at his villa in Spain, right on the Mediterranean Sea. Just a beautiful place. And he was getting up there in age. And I told him about my quest to open a museum. And he donated everything. Wow. And I have a few items here I'd like to, just so you understand, and the people understand the magnitude of this.
Yeah. What do you have?
Okay, this one here is the last Grand Prix he won. It was the French Grand Prix. Let's see if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see it clearly.
In 1959, he won the Grand Prix 4 times. The president of France, Charles de Gaulle, personally handed him this trophy.
Wow.
Just incredible. And there it is for all the ages to see. So I probably have 250, 300 of his trophies. Here's his, before it was world champion, they called it the European champion.
Yes.
But it was the same thing. It's no different. There's his FIM medal, 1956 world champion. That's the year I was born. And there it is, 24 karat gold.
Here's Terry, not to interrupt you, but it just something triggered here when you brought up that gold medal. You also have like 6 or 7 gold medals from Joel Robert.
I have all of his, a total of, I think, 14.
Yeah, and those are solid gold.
Solid gold. And there I have all of his 6 world championship FIM medals, just like the one I showed you. And
how many other trophies? How many other trophies from Les Archer do you have? What would you say in total you received from him?
From Les Archer?
Yeah,
250 to 300.
Wow.
And it's there, and these aren't plastic. These are sterling silver, pewter. I've got one near me here from Algiers, that is all pewter, this sculpture, just beautiful stuff. And his world championship certificate, Joel Robert gave me all of his world championship certificates. This is all, and they all wanted the public to see this. This is what I'm trying to, this isn't a quest to display a collection of restored Elsinores.
Right.
I can go to Belgium, I can go to England, I can go to Australia, California, around here and see those.
Yeah.
And I can, all the stock motorcycles, and we have a lot of them too. But this
Sure.
is the history. This is the greatest, Babe Ruth's bat. Think about that. And so that's the quest here. And
So
I don't know if people understand that or not.
when you first had a vision to put a museum together, I mean, now we're talking about 100,000 square feet.
Yeah.
But when you first got started, it couldn't possibly have been that big.
No, in fact, I bought a building in 2018 or something like that.
Right.
46,000 square feet. And I signed the contract, earnest money, the whole deal is ready to go. And in fact, the factory Yamahas that Yamaha sent here, they sent 10 factory Yamahas from Jeremy McGrath and those guys, championship bikes. I had them delivered there, and Roger DeCoster came here, and I took him over to the building, and he was like, "Oh man, this thing is huge! I can't believe this. This will be fantastic." And then I think Brock Glover came here, and he was just as much in awe too. And as we kept going back to the building, I go, you know what? This thing's getting smaller and smaller. And I thought for sure 46,000 feet. And I remembered Tom White a couple of years before he passed away. He told me, he was kind of like a mentor. Yeah, we were pretty good friends. And he told me, whatever you think, go 150 or 200% of it. And boy, was he right.
He was right.
So and there was no room to expand on this building that I bought. Really nice building. And
did you start moving stuff into it? You had bikes there?
Yeah, 10 factory Yamahas we had in there and other stuff. So, yes. So wow. I backed out of it. I lost my money, but it was the right thing to do. And I remember talking to DeCoster on the phone, and I go, yeah, I backed out of that building. He's like, what? And I said, yeah, it's too small. It's way too small. And he thought I was nuts. But when you see this, what I've amassed here in the last 45 years, you're going to be shocked. We'll fill this 100,000 square foot building.
We're going to talk about that in just a second, but right now I got to give a quick plug to one of my sponsors, Vinco. Vinco has a special this week on Mako pistons for the 1973 through 1980 Mako 440, just $214.95, $214.95 this week at Vinco. Keep the ride going. We're back with Terry Good. Terry, I was at your first fundraiser and your second fundraiser, and you did take me over to see a few of your storage units. Now, I only got to see one with some of the Roger DeCoster stuff in it, and I guess it was about 15 by 30, maybe it was 12 by 30. That storage unit alone was filled with wheels, frames, forks, and engines, wall to wall. I mean, neatly in boxes, but you told me that's only a fraction of what you have.
Yeah.
How much, well, when the museum does come to fruition, what portion of that museum will be just Roger DeCoster's bikes, memorabilia, and so on?
That's a great question, and that'll also answer why we have to have it at 100,000 square feet.
Okay.
His exhibit alone, and this isn't just displaying everything. This is displaying rotating stuff, figuring on rotating stuff. His exhibit space alone, we figure, will be at around 10,000 square feet.
Wow.
It's mind-boggling. The first
How
time
many of his? Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, the first time I saw all this stuff, we went over to his storage. He had some storage units by KTM out there in Murrieta, and we drove from his house out to the storage after we made the deal. And
Right.
just to clarify things here, I bought his bikes. He donated his trophies, and he donated all his gear, and he donated all these parts. And him and I have known each other. I first met Roger in 1974 as a 18-year-old kid at Mid-Ohio. And we've become pretty good friends. And he told me, and I'm not patting myself on the back or anything like that, but I'm just laying it out there. He told me, you're the only one that should have this stuff. And that's why he gave me everything. He has a couple trophies in his house. I'd like to have those too. But he gave me everything else. And he knows the appreciation that I have for it, the respect that I have for it. And yeah, I made an oath to all these guys that I will do everything that I can possibly do to see to it that this museum comes to fruition.
Do you have is there anyone else that you've purchased bikes or memorabilia from that even come close to the amount that you got from Roger?
No, nothing like that.
He's got, okay.
Yeah, that was a couple 53-foot semi trucks.
Wow.
And then I had gotten stuff from him in 2000. I bought his 73 bike off of him, World Championship bike, and then a whole bunch of parts that came with it. And so there was even more, and then throughout the years, I've gotten other stuff from him. So we've always kept in touch, and more stuff keeps coming. But now I've got it all, and it's time to build this museum, and we've got to raise this money to get this done. I can't do it on my own, Joe. I put in millions and millions and millions of dollars into this, and my family has sacrificed for it. And now it's time. I could have a really cool man cave, but I would like to share it with the public. And so we have to raise money, and we'll get it. We'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, what you're trying to do is actually start you have what it takes, but you want to display to make a historical society, so to speak, for these historical pedigree bikes.
Yeah.
And it is something that the motocross community certainly deserves to see, and you have all the things to make that possible. Now, I was thinking, we're doing this interview now. You and I do communicate, for people who are watching and may not know that. Terry and I do communicate, not every day, but a couple of times a month, however it happens. You do have a meeting coming up about this 100,000 square foot building. And I have a picture of it here. Anyway, let me just keep going until I can get to the picture. You have a special relationship with the person who owns this building, and you've seen it before, and the people who own it, they want to see you in that building. Can you talk a little bit about that, Terry, or is it too premature to say anything about that?
Yeah, I can answer any questions, or I'll tell you where we stand right now. The owner of the building.
Here's a shot. Here's just a section of this building, the way it stands today. This is the way it looks, and this is just one section of a building which is over 100,000 square feet. So tell us where we are right about now, and how much closer we are than we were maybe before the last fundraiser.
Okay, where we're at right now is that building is owned by a very good friend of mine, a guy I've known for decades. I go to church with this man. I go to Bible study with this man. And he owns this 37-acre auto park. They sell Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Range Rover, the Mercedes Sprinter vans,
Hmm.
and it's like I said, it's a 37-acre auto park, and so they purchased this building just a couple miles north of their auto park, and they run the Sprinter business out of it now.
Is that it there? That's the front of the building there?
Yeah, that's the front of it.
Okay.
So so that's how it stands right now, and it's a lot of it's vacant right now, and so they're going to sell. They're going to move their Sprinter business down to the auto park, and they're going to sell that building. Well, they know I want to buy it, and Bill Knaus is the owner. He's a very good friend of mine, and
Mhm.
He's a motor enthusiast too. He's got this car collection that you just wouldn't believe. I mean, just nuts. And he raced cars, and he's a motorcycle enthusiast. So,
And you know him a long time.
yes, for a long, long time. And so him and I are very good friends. We talk to each other a couple times a week on the phone. I'll go visit him. He's got a huge airplane collection. Um, anyway, he wants me to have this building. And so I told him I want to buy it, and they're going to work with me so this museum can purchase the building. Now, let me explain a few things that maybe people are confused about.
Please.
The IMM, I had it legally. It's not, I'm the chairman of it,
Yes.
but the IMM is a separate entity. It is a 501c3 organization. It registers as a not-for-profit organization in the state of Illinois, and it's separate from Terry Good. So the museum is itself. Terry Good I purchased all those bikes and memorabilia with after-tax money that I earned as a commodity trader. And I was blessed to, do pretty well at it. And that's what I did. So that's a separate thing. So when you donate to that museum, you're donating to the museum, to the International Motocross Museum, not to Terry Good.
So when people go to that website and they buy shirts and hats and different types of swag that you have there, that has nothing to do with you. That goes directly to the museum, and it's a tax write-off for the person who purchases whatever they buy.
That's correct. Every donation is a tax write-off. Now, you can talk to your accountant about that, but that's what it's for. That's what a 501, we're tax exempt. That's what it is. And it's very hard to get that. And I had a lawyer friend of mine. It took us a long, long time to get it, and he finally got it. Mm-hmm. And so we're very serious about doing this. This isn't, we just got to be above all the nonsense, and we just got to get this done. And so that's what we're really focusing on. And going back to this meeting that I'm coming up with Bill and the people at Knaus, we're having this meeting, and they had the building appraised, so we're gonna go over that. A lot of things, the roof and all this stuff has to be looked at. All the utilities, the taxes, every little thing about it. You'd be surprised how much work is behind one of these things.
Oh, I saw the building itself, Terry. You had a bunch of us there back during the time of the fundraiser, and I think I have a picture here. Yeah, I mean, Ricky Johnson was there, Garrett Wolsink, Heike Mikkola. You took us over there and showed us the building and gave us a tour of this fabulous facility. But yeah, I can imagine what does go into it. I mean, you think about even when you buy a house, what you go through. And that's just a house. I can only imagine 100,000 square foot building that has had all types of machinery and things running through it, and all the things that have gone on there. By the way, what was this building before it was a Mercedes dealership? Isn't this building kind of rich in history with Chicago? What was there?
It was a bakery that goes back to the 1930s.
That's what it was.
Yeah, and but what Knaus did, what the dealership did, is they went through the building. All the floors are re-epoxied.
Hmm.
It's like it's mint. It's just perfect. All the walls are painted. All the lights have been done with LED, to reduce the. Every little thing is been. It's just perfect, and it's all vacant and open. I'll go there, in a few days and maybe take some more pictures and post them on the Facebook site. But it's like made to order, and so that's what we want to do, and it's perfect for us. It's 5 miles north of my house here.
What town? When people think of Chicago, much like when they think of New York City, they think of the city itself. But what town is that building in exactly? Is it North Chicago?
It's in North Chicago and Lake Bluff. It's right on the border there, on a main thoroughfare that runs through there, Highway 41. And there's two motels right on each side of it, so that's perfect. Uh,
Right.
I went to dinner back in, this is a few years ago. I went to dinner with the people at Yamaha out in California. The president of Yamaha, Bob Starr, Bob Hanna, Keith McCarty. We all went to dinner in Huntington Beach, and I sat down with them and all that, and they listened to my pitch. And by the way, Yamaha is going to be involved in this financially, and
They are.
yes, they are. And also, I believe, well, KTM is committed as well. So we just got to figure out the terms. But I went out to dinner with these guys, and in the conversation, they thought that Chicago was a great location because it's centrally located.
Yeah.
It's a hub. O'Hare is just 20 minutes down the road from the museum building.
Hmm.
So it's right off the tollway. And they believe, this was their words, they believe this will be a global destination.
Yeah.
And I agree too.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, I think it is about the best location you could ask for.
Yeah.
It is centrally located, and with the size that you have there, and now you just mentioned that KTM wants to be involved.
Mhm.
Yamaha is wanting to be involved, but I would imagine it's going to take. Uh, well, I mean, I don't know how much there are bigger corporations than KTM and Yamaha, but it's going to take someone with some philanthropic money, so to speak, or someone who has a passion toward this, who realize it's going to be a long-term thing. Have you spoken to anyone? Or is there anyone in the wings right now that you're speaking to at that level?
Yes, there are. Our grassroots fundraising has been, we appreciate every penny we get, but if we relied
Yeah,
on that to open the museum, it would be maybe a million
it
years.
wouldn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're doing at the moment is I have a friend who was the number two man at a very big, a Fortune 500 corporation. And he's also a friend of Bill Knaus. We're kind of all working on this together. But he's going
Okay.
to put me in front of some CEOs of some major Fortune 500 corporations. And these corporations all have philanthropy uh, departments. And
Yeah.
right. And so we're going to be getting in front of these people. And in preparation for that, we're building a pitch book, which is a book, 30 pages or something like that, in a spiral
Mhm.
binder, real professional, with nice graphics, and so explaining what we are and what we're doing. And we're going to go there um, with this pitch book and explain what we're doing. And so they can, this is what they do, those philanthropy departments. And so they um, look at things like this. And we're going to go to these local, Chicago's a big city, and there's a
Yes.
lot of big corporations around here. And so we've got a kind of an inside track at that. The other thing we're doing is we're going to join the local chamber of commerce here. And a guy from Houston, Texas, Joe Conti, who was the second largest uh, Chevrolet dealership in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is going to help us with that. He did that down there and raised millions and millions and millions of dollars with the Chamber of Commerce, or through the Chamber of Commerce down in Houston. So we're going to join the Chamber of Commerce, and he's going to help us raise funds for this endeavor as well. So we're really, we're kind of hitting it with shooting at it with all barrels, all our guns are firing, and we're making a major effort at this.
Okay. Terry, we're going to take a short break to hear from one of our sponsors. When we come back, we'll talk about a little bit more about what we're actually going to see in the museum that will make it unique. We'll be right back with more from Terry Good.
Vinco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vinco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vinco air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vinco.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vinco has to offer to help you get back on track and keep that ride going.
All right, we're back with Terry Good. Terry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought I would take a little break there and hear from our sponsor, Vinco. Now, inside the museum, I mean, a lot of people, everybody expects to see bikes and memorabilia. I know they have no idea how much, but I've heard you also talk about it's going to be a special experience that you probably will not be able to get through in one day. I do remember talking to you about things that would be pre-recorded. You would have headphones as you went through the museum. Let's talk a little bit about that and what you envision there.
Sure. Several years ago, my daughter got me a birthday present to go through a mobile Rolling Stones museum that was on Navy Pier in downtown Chicago.
Okay.
And I didn't know what to expect. It was mobile. Anyway, we went there, and they had it starting. Each exhibit was like a diorama, where starting from their London flat, before they were popular and all that, where they all lived together. There was a mock-up of this dingy apartment with stuff, beer bottles all over the floor and Chuck Berry records, and it looked so real, the kitchen sink full of dishes that hadn't been washed. And then you went to the next, you kept walking, and you went to the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the one, and at each one of these stations, there was a kiosk there. And so you were given a set of headphones at the beginning, and you put them on and you connected them to your phone. And you just hit this button on the kiosk, if I remember right. And this pre-recorded tape would play back through your headphones, telling you exactly what you're looking at, when it happened, how this was original, these guitars and this drums, all that. And it was amazing. And then they got to this one that was a full-on recording studio with the wood plank floors, Olympic studios in London. And they had the actual amplifiers, Ampeg amps, and the clear lucite Ampeg guitar that Keith Richards used. All the stuff, everything was there. The chords on the floor, and it was it was an exact mock-up of how it was when they recorded the "Gimme Shelter," the "Let It Bleed" album. And I thought, what a cool thing to do for the 100 years of, most motorcycle displays are just a row of bikes. In fact, they're always trying to pack 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag, it seems.
Yes.
And they're packed so tightly, you can't even, I mean, they're nice, but it's not what we're going to be about. We're going to have these dioramas. We're going to put you back in time at the 1953 Luxembourg Grand Prix, where Leslie Archer finally defeated the great August Mingles. And we're going to make you feel like you are there with the backdrops, the photographs, the gear. I've got pictures I've got about 1,500 pictures from Håkan Andersson's personal archive. And recently, I go through them all the time and look at them. And he's got this picture, I think it's in Castle, France. And there's this toolbox and tire pump and all these little things around the van, and then the bike. And I have the bike, and I have all his gear and mechanic uniforms. And then I just go, I wonder whatever happened to all that toolbox. Oh, they're at my house, under the house. I'm going to throw those out. No, don't throw them out. So he shipped all that stuff here. And so you're going to be put back in time in 1973 at the French Grand Prix in Håkan Andersson's paddock, or his pit. And so that's what we're doing all throughout history, and DeCoster's will just be unbelievable with all the stuff we have from him. And so that, and I've also gone around and bought all these vans and transporters, period correct, 71 Dodge van. We'll have it painted.
Really?
Yes. I have.
So you're going to have these actual vehicles, so you'll feel like you're stepping into a pit area at a GP 50 years ago. Van, car, truck, equipment, everything right there. You'll step back in time.
That's exactly right. And the bike sitting in front of the van, the Castrol metal gas can, 5-gallon gas can, the toolbox, the side doors of the van open, maybe his boots there, or maybe a mannequin of Roger. I think I have 35 of his jerseys or something, going all the way back to the CZ era.
Yeah.
So, what we will be able to, this will be like the Smithsonian for motocross, and there's no replicas. This is all the genuine, Sten London, 1961 world champion. We have his bike, got his original Lido jersey. We have his pants. We have his helmet, the Pudding Bowl helmet, Cromwell helmet. All of it. It'll all be on. That's what's so amazing about it. It isn't just some guy in Chicago that, has a bunch of bikes, and it isn't about that at all. We're preserving the history of motocross.
Yeah. Well, it's, as I've said to you before, yes, you say it's about the history of motocross, and, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame isn't about Elvis Presley. It's about all the music and all the things that happen. And the same thing goes with the Baseball Hall of Fame. And we all know Mickey Mantle, we all know Babe Ruth, but it is, of course, much bigger than one person. And when an enthusiast goes through there, they get to experience that firsthand and really, how could I say, be engaged in that type of history. Now, Terry, there's also something else you have in this museum, or that will be there, that you call a media room, where people can actually go in and research newspaper clippings and things like that?
Yes, I have collected, over the years, I've been quietly buying out photo collections in Europe, in the United States, and I've amassed about 250,000 photographs, most of which have never been seen. And just from Roger, out of his personal collection, he also threw that in. That's thousands and thousands of just him, and so I have all of that. I have all the magazines. It's just thousands, and I don't even know how many, but it's a lot. And also I have upwards of 300 films probably, and a lot of them have never been seen before from the past. So we're going to open up, we have this room, a media room. In fact, we were in it. Remember, you were in it when about 30 of us went over there that time, Joe.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's going to be our media room. And we're going to be able to show film in there. And if people want to do research, we'll have a magazine archive. I have a ton of books. Yeah, that's the room, right? There's Heike and Ricky.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll have all that will be there and accessible. That will be the historical society. And historical societies are, I live on the North Shore of Chicago, so it's very historical around here from, going way, way back. And it's, in my town, Abraham Lincoln gave famous speeches from balconies of people's homes that are real close to here. And so all these little towns up the North Shore have these historical societies, and all that kind of, it's not necessarily memorabilia, but it's the historical documentation of that place, and going through from the beginning. And that's what we're going to do for motocross. So this has never been done before. And here, I forget who told me it was, but the top guy now is Jet Lawrence. And when he first met Ricky Johnson, he didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Go to any Little League game and ask any 12-year-old in the United States if he knows who Mickey Mantle was. And I bet you dollars to donuts, 90% of them will.
Yeah. Well, I think Jet Lawrence's trainer, isn't it Johnny O'Mara? I mean, does he know about Johnny O'Mara's history and what
I
he
don't
did?
know. But we want to change that. And it's kind of, I told DeCoster, I was like, God, in a way, the whole industry should be ashamed of themselves for not preserving this. When, you and I are about the same age, Joe. I was born in 56, so I'll be 67 this September. Going to the Trans Ams and the GPs and the Nationals in the 70s, that was like the best kept secret in the United States. NFL, you didn't even talk about, so if we don't do this, it'll be lost.
Yeah.
It will be lost.
And the good news is, Terry, I mean, you have the majority of it at your fingertips. So it seems that your calling is to make this happen. So let me ask you this, because it's certainly not something that you can do. I don't know why I have this tape in my hand, but I do. I want to know that you can't do it all yourself. Is there a person who actually designs a museum? Do you have to have an architect come in there to talk about the flow of people and how these things will be set up? There must be professional people that have to be on board to make this thing happen. You can't do it all yourself.
Exactly. I'm a carpenter,
mm-hmm.
and I'm a commodity trader.
Yep.
That's the only two occupations I've had in my entire life. So I don't know anything about this. We have figured out we had a group of, Tom Miller, yourself has been a part of these meetings, and other people. And we've had we made a budget, and we believe our budget is what we'd have to do to open this up. We have to raise $13 million.
Okay.
Sounds like an astronomical, and if you're comparing it to a garage behind my other garage, it is an astronomical amount of money. But you got museums like the Peterson Museum that raise hundreds of millions of dollars for the cars. And also, this is a global motocross venture. So $13 million, what does that cover? Well, it buys the building. It hires there are people that just design museums. That's all they do. And I've spoken with some of them, some of the people that work there and all that. So we would hire a company to design the inside of the museum. We would lay out the whole chronological history of everything, and then they would go ahead and design the exhibits, all the special lighting, and then we have money figured in to build that out. Now we have to staff it. So we have to have a skeletal staff. We've got that figured out, what we can get away with minimally.
Right.
And then we have to pay for the insurance of the building, so people don't sue us. It starts adding up, and the taxes for the building, the utilities, all those things have to be considered. Now, to do all that $13 million covers all of that plus working capital for 3 years.
Okay.
So, and then we're going to sell subscriptions to corporations where they can, like, we'll go to Yamaha, or we'll go to Honda or someone like that, KTM, and for X amount of dollars, you can have, we'll promote you, we'll do all this. You have access to the museum. You can have corporate events here. We'll have a whole bunch of perks figured out and lined up that they would get for their sponsorship, so to speak.
Got it.
And they would, that is what we would offer corporate donors. And so it's very well structured. It's well thought out. And it's, we've basically done this, and you know this, Joe, on our own. We've basically, I've had some helps from my good friend, Russ Lockridge, who was this big executive in Chicago, who's going to get me in front of all these CEOs for these firms. But, we're serious. This is not, I can't stress anymore. Please keep me from having a cool man cave.
Yeah. And people got to realize too, wherever they are in the country, we're talking about Chicago. It's freezing cold in the winter. It's very hot in the summer. And a building like that needs to be at absolutely the perfect temperature with all that very rare equipment in it, the motorcycles, the memorabilia, and all that. So everything has to be 100% or better when it comes to housing that type of pedigree, as we say. So there's a whole lot more to it than just stacking some bikes together to see, and just pack in as much as we can. So I got to remind the people that Motion Pro still has a special going on. It's 20% across the board on everything throughout the month of July. That's 20% across the board on everything at Motion Pro. Be sure at checkout you type in MP9135. That's MP9135 at Motion Pro. Go ahead, Terry, you were saying?
Let me just show you one other thing that I have that is just so precious to me. This is a diary that Leslie Archer, again, he was the 1956 500 world champion.
Yeah.
And he also raced road race before that. And him and his father were the first father and son to race the Isle of Man TT after World War II. And they did that in 1947. And I actually have the trophies from that. But this is a diary he kept. And it's
from 46 to 49?
1946 to 49. And here's in France in April 6th, 1947. Where am I going here?
Yeah, bring it a little closer. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
So he typed all that out and inserted that. And it just goes on and on and on. And all these things, I have all of his photo albums. Don't you think this stuff should be preserved where people can see it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Should it be in my man cave in my backyard? I don't think so. I'm willing to loan this stuff to be on display there so the whole world can see it. And it's I think we'll get there. It's just a question of when and how. So
we are going to take one more break, Terry, then we'll be back to wrap it up with Terry Good. Hey, it's Joe Abadi for Vintage Motocross Q&A. When you're replacing a cylinder or a gasket or doing a top end on your bike, many times it's very, very difficult to get to the nuts that are on the base. And you want to be sure that you torque those evenly whenever you change a top end. Motion Pro has come up with this great tool. It's the torque adapter, okay? You can put any size wrench in there and you can tighten it up. On the back is a 3/8 drive. You can put your torque wrench in there, get the wrench on the nut that's on the base of your cylinder, and make sure everything is torqued evenly. This is a great tool. I have one in the shop. We use it all the time. It comes with instructions as well. Go see your local dealer or get to motionpro.com. And don't forget, go over to Vintage Motocross Q&A to get a 20% discount on all Motion Pro tools. With Terry Good. And yeah, Terry, none of that stuff should be hidden. You know, as it says, what good is a light under a bushel? That thing should be out there for everybody to see. So,
yeah, I completely agree with you. And, you know, when I go looking for something, you know, I'll go into one of the units where I think it is, or wherever I think it's stored, I'll go in there and I'll come across stuff, you know, that I forgot that I have. And it's just so immense. Words can't describe it. I mean, just it will take a couple days, I'm sure, to go through everything.
Yeah.
And we want to continue the history even from where it's at now. We want it to keep going and keep going. And that's the reason for the size of the building. It just makes complete sense. And, you know, if there was any other questions, people can private message me on Facebook or you, Joe, or something like that. And,
sure.
And contact us. We'll be happy to, you know, answer the questions. We're as transparent as possible. We're just trying to do a noble thing for a sport that so many of us love. That's all it is.
Now, you've got a special relationship with a lot of people out there, Terry. You had one, of course, with the late great Joel Robert, but you spend a lot of time too talking to this guy, to Bob Hanna. Yeah. And he's a rather outspoken guy when it comes to certain things. Let's talk for a moment about how he has helped you progress with the International Motocross Museum and some of the things that he's done and your friendship with Bob.
Yeah, I've known Bob a long time. And we actually, the first time I met him was at Saddleback in 1975 when he was riding those RM Suzukis and just destroying everybody. I don't think I ever saw him lose a moto in the CMC races. And so him and I have become good friends. I raced in the 76 125 Nationals that on a YZ, and that was the famous series where Bob and Marty Smith just had the duel of the ages. Yeah. That was an unbelievable series. And so I competed in that. And then, you know, later Bob, I went into commodity trading. I focused on that, and he was selling airplanes and real estate and things. But we're really good friends. We talk probably 2 or 3 times a week now. We text each other probably every day. We think alike, and we have so many common interests. Politically, we're about right there, the same together. And he's just a really cool guy. You know, he's an old school guy, and I am too. Yeah. So Bob and I really hit it off. But you know what he did, and this was so nice. He doesn't like to, you know, he goes to different events for his good friend Eddie Cole and their business together. You know, he does stuff like that, and he did events for Yamaha. But other than that, he really doesn't like to go outside of his circle, so to speak. And I've known him a long time, and I remember Stanton asked him to do something, and Bob said, you know, he gave him some wisecrack response to say no. And I told Stanton, I said, yeah, I'm going to get Bob here. And he goes, oh, you'll never get him here. And, all right. So I called up Hannah and I said, hey, we're having this fundraiser here in Chicago. Yep. And we're, you know, and I explained everything, that it was for the museum. And he says, yeah, sure, I'll go to that. And I was like, that was easy.
Yeah.
He goes, and I said, would you make a video for us too, so we can promote it? And he goes, yeah. So I sent him a t-shirt and all that, and he wore it, and he sat in a lawn chair in front of his airplane, and he did a really nice job. And now here's where it really gets good. So Keith McCarty agrees to come up here. I've known him a long time too. And Ray Hale, a good friend of his. And the guy that owns JT.
John Gregory.
John Gregory. Yeah. The four of them agreed to come here. So Hannah rents he didn't want to fly commercial, and we were going to pay, we paid for all these flights for all these people. We paid $16,000 for Heikki Mikkola to come here for the last.
That was for the second one. You're still talking about the first one.
I'm still talking about the first one, but that's how much. Yeah. And so Bob was, okay. And so I'm thinking, okay, these guys are all gonna, how much is this? Bob rents a private jet. The four of them hop in it in Idaho, and he flies here. And Bill Knaus, the guy that's selling us the building, he has, he has a whole bunch of airplane hangars up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, just north of the border from here. And so he gets it. So Bob can park the jet inside of his big hangar there, which is right next to the Wrigley family that owns, Wrigley Field and Wrigley. Yeah, there's right there. And so Hannah pulls in here with this jet. Bill gives them a car to come down here to my house, and they're here and the day before the event, and we're just having a blast, go out to dinner and all that. And it comes time to pay for it was $13,000 to rent that jet.
To rent the jet?
Yeah, to come here. And I said,
who paid for that?
Bob did.
Did he really?
Bob Hanna paid for that jet. And when I asked him about it, I go, how much do I owe you for that? For that. And he goes, count that as my contribution to the IMM.
Wow.
That's who Mr. Hanna is.
Very impressive.
It is. I mean, he's all for this. Yeah, and he would come here. He couldn't come here to the last one because of, I can't even remember what it was, but it was a great excuse. It would have been awesome to have Mikkola and Hanna at the same,
It would have.
Yeah.
It would have. And, Ricky was interviewing Heikki. I don't know if I should say this. Well, Ricky was interviewing Heikki, and he asked Heikki Mikkola about Roger and Bob Hanna. And Heikki, whose English is limited, said, Roger passed me. Hanna never passed me. Anyway, the person who got the biggest kick out of it was, of course, Ricky Johnson, because he was asking the question. But it was just one of those classic moments of where these titans of motocross, as humble as they get in their old age, some of them just don't forget certain things, and I guess that was just one of them that day. So, Terry, I've got another picture here, and I hope Cindy. Well, here, I'm going to put the picture up. I just love this picture. And behind every great man is a great woman, as they say. Yes. And I love the look on her face. I guess you took the picture when you were getting ready to photograph the bike. But anyway, the look on her face is absolutely, it's precious. It really, really is. So what is she going through right there? And has she about had enough of the whole motocross museum thing?
I definitely married up, and the whole industry should be so grateful for her because she has tolerated bikes in the house. Our family has gone without because of me hunting down this or that, and I didn't take a vacation for 10 years. More so because I like trading so much, I just love that job. And it wasn't a job, but I love doing that. And so Cindy has been behind me we met in 1976 when I was racing the 125 Nationals. I lived in an apartment that my dad owned, and she was my cleaning lady. That's how I met her. So the bikes were in the apartment, and she knows, she knew what she was getting into, but probably not at this level. And that particular photograph was when I was setting up the lighting for that RC 500 of Pierre Carsmakers for that book I wrote back in 2008 or 9. And her and I took 20 bikes. They limited me, Motorbooks limited me to 20 bikes. And we traveled through 4 states and photographed everything on location. So we would load a couple bikes up, drive up to Wisconsin. Gene Ritchie let us use Redbud, to film some bikes. Here in Illinois, we filmed them all over the place. And that was late in the day. And she was like, please, let's get this over with. So she's been a trooper. And, she owns, those bikes are hers and mine. And she's for this. So hats off to Cindy. She's been a real good sport about this, and I can't thank her enough.
Well, Terry,
Oh,
I'm not saying that this is all the time that we have. Is she there, Cindy?
yeah, she is.
Cindy, come in on camera here a bit. Let
Come here a
everyone
second,
see
Cindy.
how.
Sit here. Let
No,
me.
I look terrible. And the guys here for the bike, I want to make sure RM250 with the kickstand.
Yes, but just no, not with the stand. Just come here and sit in front of Joe right now.
He can't. He's been out there, and I've been.
Let him sit out there. Come on.
No, I'm a bum.
That's all right. Come on.
I just want to get that bike.
This is my better half.
There she is.
Yeah,
Cindy,
you're
nice
good.
to see you.
You too. We've got to pick up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say hello and give you equal time like I've given Terry.
Oh, well, I don't have an hour.
Someday maybe you will, and you could fill in all the blanks for us.
Ooh, the gossip would be good.
Yeah, it will.
All right. Well, I got to get these guys.
All right.
Thanks, Cindy.
The one with the kickstand, the bike with the kickstand.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, a shout out to George for his moto barn.
George Ackerman.
Ackerman, yes. We're big motor barn fans.
Yeah, I am too. I can't wait. I'm going to be there October 28th. We're all going to be down there. Who else is going to be there? Steve Wise, Warren Reed, Martina Faltova Cope, Don Kadowski is going to be there. Else? Oh, I think Gary Bailey. Gary Bailey's also going to be there.
Oh, nice.
Open house given put on by George Ackerman and the Moto Barn. That's in Rutherford Glen, Virginia. And if anybody wants to go, get a hold of George. He wants to make sure he has enough food and drink for everyone. Terry, is there anything we missed today?
Well, George asked me if he could borrow that new 125 Mugen that we just got, that 81, to display it there. And he's more than welcome, to borrow it for that event. George, by the way, George has been a fairly big donor to the IMM.
Yeah.
And we're going to announce these donors. We're going to post an announcement of the guys that have donated, even if it's $25 or whatever it is. We're going to put them on there, and they will always, no matter what happens, those people stepped out, had faith in us, and we're going to do something very special for them. That is a promise.
Great.
Yeah.
That's good. Speaking of bikes and recent purchases, I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag, I'm sure. You filled in a part of a collection that was almost impossible to fill. You recently purchased a 1971 RH or RN.
Yeah, I was just telling Roger the other day on the phone. I said, because I have all of his open class bikes, and I have every factory Suzuki works bike, open class, 500 class,
right,
from 1970 to 1979. So that's 10 years. And I said, the only year we're missing here is 71. And I go, you're not going to believe this, but I found one. And we just made the deal for it. And it'll be arriving in Chicago. It's rough. But with all the parts I got from Roger and everything, we have everything it needs. And so he sent me pictures. And so I sent him some pictures, and he needed a diaper change after seeing it. Yeah. He's really supportive of us, and he really wants to see this thing take off. He invited, I've got stage 3 congestive heart failure. Okay. So I'm, kind of a couch potato these days, but him and I, when we get together, we chat about history, and it's just amazing. I've made so many friendships throughout the years, but him and I really like to talk about the old history. And he said, hey, come on to Redbud, for this national, and let's talk about the old days. And I couldn't do it because of my heart, and it was like 100 degrees and really humid, and that's just the worst thing for a bad heart. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's and all these little stories, and it's just amazing the memorabilia that is preserved in this collection that ties all this stuff together. It will be, I wish everyone could just know what I know. It will be just an incredible thing. And it'll be a destination. And I'm sure it will draw people into the sport that otherwise aren't in it.
Yeah. Well, Terry, I will be in touch with you after your meetings, and we'll talk more about what is going on with the International Motocross Museum and the progress that it's making. In the meantime, if there's anything else that you want, any other word you wanted to get out there between today and whenever, you just give me a call, and I'd be happy to share the news with whatever's happening with everyone.
That's great. And anytime you want me to chime in on an update, I'll be happy to do it. Like I said, we're being as transparent as possible. We believe we'll have the building acquired, the deal made, by the end of the year.
Yeah.
If we do that, we think we can be open sometime in 2025. Yeah. That's our goal. But this isn't a second-rate thing we're doing here. This is absolute top of the line in every regard, and I wouldn't do it any other way.
That's the way we want to see it done. Terry, good. Thank you so much for spending time with us and telling us about the International Motocross Museum that we are going to see happen, I believe, sooner than later.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Terry. My guest today has been Terry Good. We have been talking about the International Motocross Museum. I also want to thank a couple of our sponsors before we end the show tonight. One, of course, is Full Circle Racing. I want to thank Tom McCallister, who's got that great wheel special going on yet. Just $775 for a black wheel set, 18-inch or 19-inch. Get a hold of Tom. That special is not going to last forever. If you need a backing plate for a CZ, Tom also has those as well. He's been making those for over 20 years. Preston Petty Products. The legend continues at Preston Petty Products. Be sure to get there every week. Something special always going on there. And my new favorite sponsor, ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. Paul Parkinson Sr. is doing a great job of getting all those parts out there for your Honda Elsinores, including this air boot, a side cover mounting plate. He is now 3D printing foot pegs, and all sorts of things. If you're seeing this, get a hold of Paul Parkinson Sr. at ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. And don't forget, he has a special to where you give him a part, he reproduces the part, you get yours back, and you get a replica too. It's a loan a part, get a part program. That about wraps it up for tonight's Vintage Motocross Q&A. Don't forget, Vintage Motocross Q&A sponsorship opportunities are still available. We've got that big event coming up in Australia, which actually you're watching this while I'm there. We have the Can-Am reunion coming up. That's happening in mid-August. And just a whole lot of great stuff going on here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. But for today, that about wraps it up. We are going to see you again live on a live show, possibly the third week in August. Certainly, we will return at the beginning of September with a little bit of a new format too. We're going to be doing a lot more with the interview shows and things like that. So once again, thank you for watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. It's been my pleasure to be your host. Thank you, Terry Good. Please support the Vintage Motocross, the International Motocross Museum. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Vintage Motocross Q&A.